Okay, next what I like to do is basically just dive underneath the car and take a look at the bottom, see any oil leaks. Obviously on this car we do have an oil leak. Now as you can see, those droplets on the engine oil pan, which is this one, those could be from your valve cover gasket, you know, coming all the way down, or they could be just from your oil pan, engine oil pan. Those are also another common areas of leaking. We have a lot of grime and also some probably leaking from your transmission oil pan, which is this guy right here. That's also another common area for leaks. Now usually the transmission oil pans are easy to replace. Not the same thing cannot be said about the engine oil pan. On some cars it's very difficult to replace. You know, some cars you have to disconnect the engine from the motor mounts, raise it and whatnot, so could get pretty pricey. Also on this frame, on this part of on this side, you can see some what I think is coolant. This is coolant from here, this is from the water pump side, which is on this side. It could still be hoses and whatnot, but we have verified that we do have a coolant leak. That's why they've been probably adding water to it. It's probably good size coolant leak too. It's a good size leak. This definitely has to be repaired. Both the leak and your oil leaks down here, both the coolant leak and the oil leaks down here. So these are all things you need to consider. Okay, and now underneath our Civic, here is our transmission side. This is grime. This is just dirt and whatnot. This is not oil leaks down here. It's pretty clean. You know, checking around everywhere. And here's our engine oil pan. Also some dirt and grime on it, but no leaks that I can see. So far this Honda Civic is pretty good. Okay, next we're gonna check the tire conditions. I'm just gonna do it on one tire, but it's you need to do it on all tires, since you know you could have a problem with one tire, not the others. What you're looking for is even wear. You know, obviously you need enough meat on there. You know, make sure it's not all flat. You know, you can put a penny in there and then measure. So yeah, if you got enough meat on there, you want to check for even wear. If, like for example, this inside part was really badly worn, or worn a lot more than this part, you might have a potential issue with one of the suspension components. It could be a, you know, tie rod or a control arm, something along those lines. Okay, also if you weren't able to look at the your CV joints, or specifically the boots, when you were underneath the car, this is a good time to look at them. Your CV boots are obviously, this is your outer boot and that's your inner boot right there. Look for any tears, any grease leaking out. If you got a tear or grease leaking out, you need to replace those boots if they're already not, you know, clicking, which we'll do a, you know, inspection later. Also, while you're down here, you can take a good look at your bushings. These are your lower control arm bushings. If if this control arm is resting on here, or you can see a obvious tear there, that's another bad sign. And same goes for that back one. Okay, also don't just look at the tire. You know, it's best to put your hand on the tire, run it up and down, you know, and look for any, you know, bumps in the tire. Sometimes when there's a problem with the suspension, you get it damages the inside of the tire, you know, how the tire is made, held together, and then you starts getting little bumps, and that's pretty much the end of your tire. Also, if you run your hands against it and then you feel these edges that are standing up. I have a video on replacing the rear shocks of a Saturn Ion. If you want to look at, you can see it better. If you're running your hand and then these are all a little protruded past the, one side is protruded past the other, and your finger is catching all of them really bad. That's usually a sign of a bad strut or shock on your on that side, because it's probably not doing its job. It's weak, and your tires keep bouncing up and down on the pavement, and that bouncing is gonna make these ridges stand up and not be even, and that is also the end of your tire. So you want to keep that in mind. Just running your hand against your tire could tell you a lot more than you think. Okay, here's a look at the Civic, the right front tire, which is in pretty good shape. It's got still a bunch of meat left on there. And our outer CV joint boot on this side, and Well, the inner one I can't see from here, but you can see it from top. They're both in good shape. Okay, another way you can check for a weak shock or a strut is basically just push down on one side at a time. You're looking for it to bounce just once, come back up, maybe a tiny little bounce, and then but stay completely still. As you can see, this side is pretty solid. Now you want to do that same thing for all the way around. Okay, what I'd like to do is do a quick inspection of the tailpipe and the surrounding areas. If you see a lot of, just black soot, that's could be a sign of the engine burning oil. And you can also just run your finger inside of the tailpipe and also check underneath here. That's sometimes where it collects. Just a little bit is okay. I mean, that's just normal. All engines burn a little oil, but you don't want to see like any excessive blackness, around the tailpipe. And this Honda Civic is pretty good, just got a tiny amount. Probably helps if your fingers are clean to start off with, but we got just a tiny amount, and that's definitely normal. All right, next we check the Monte Carlo. On the Monte Carlo, also there is hardly anything. So we're good there too, but you keep in mind there's 2 sets of exhaust pipes coming out of this Monte Carlo. Check both. Yeah, they're both okay. Okay, so after doing all those checks with the engine off, now it's time to get inside the car, and if you have one, hook up your OBD2 reader, which is it's going to tell you whether the car has any check engine codes, any pending check engine codes. But I would recommend getting, if you are going to buy an OBD2 reader, getting one that can tell you the readiness of your emissions components monitors, which is this right here. Now you're going to have to turn the key to the accessory or the on position. Then we're going to read our codes. There we go. Okay, as you can see, we have 1 engine code on this Chevy Monte Carlo. Actually it says 2, but they're the same. It's PO496 evap high purge flow fault. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but probably will do a video on replacing this. But this is obviously something to do with your evap system. Something got a fault with the evap system, and it's gonna probably cost you a couple $100 if you are not going to do it yourself. And there we go, that's the second code, but it's the same, basically same thing. But back to why I was saying you want to get a OBD2 reader that can tell you the readiness of your emissions monitors. Or say, okay, we're going to check our all our readiness of our emission components, and as you can see, we have misfire monitor, okay, fuel system monitor, okay, computer component, okay, catalyst monitor, which is your catalytic converter, is incomplete. Heated catalyst NA, not applicable for this car. Evap system monitor, okay, well that means it just tested all the components, and obviously we have a code. We go further down, we have also oxygen sensor monitor, incomplete, oxygen sensor heat, incomplete, EGR system. Okay, so we got 3 incomplete monitors. What that means is that recently this car has had the battery reset, or the computer or the codes erased, and it has not been driven enough. Whenever you reset the computer by either disconnecting the battery or doing it with an OBD2 reader and erasing all your engine codes, you have to drive the car a certain amount of miles for all these monitors to be ready or okay. So if you got incomplete ones, that means that has been done recently. It's either got the engine code has been either erased by an OBD2 reader or disconnecting the battery. So if you see this, that should send definitely a red flag. Someone's been doing one of those things, and they're probably trying to hide something. Okay, and here's a look at our Honda Civic. We got no codes, and we got okay. We got 1 incomplete, everything okay. This car is actually, everything is okay, but since we did the timing belt job on this, I disconnected the battery. So That's why we got one incomplete, but I am sure everything on this car, all the monitors are okay. And that's what you want to see when you go to inspect the car. What you want to do next is put the key in the ignition, turn the key to the on position, and then look for two very important lights. One is your check engine light, the other one is your airbag light. And if so equipped, your ABS light. They all need to come on and then go off when you turn on the engine. They need to flash probably, they're gonna probably flash, and they need to then go off after you turn on the engine. So we're gonna do this again, just to show you. There's our check engine light, oil light, battery light, airbag light, side airbag light off, which went off by itself. Airbag light went off by itself, and check engine light and everything else went off by themselves. That's what you want to see when you turn on the engine. Okay. Also, obviously, you want to listen to the engine as it turns on. You don't want it to crank more than 2 or 3 times before it turns on. Anything more than that, it could be a problem with airflow, air fuel mixture, or something along those lines. Yeah, after you turn on the engine, you want to put your foot on the brake. This is hopefully after a cold start. Okay, put your foot on the brake, put the engine in reverse, and then it should take a second or two for it to engage. You should feel it, but you shouldn't feel a kick either. Okay, then you want to go to drive. Same thing for that. Maybe you do this a couple times just to be on the safe side. And then if you have someone with you, you want to have them outside of the car looking at the engine, and then we're going to test the motor and transmission mount. So you do that by putting keeping your foot on the brake pedal. Make sure your foot is firmly on the brake pedal. Then you put the car in reverse, again with your foot firmly on the brake pedal, and actually go ahead and engage the emergency brakes. Then with your foot on the brake pedal, you just tap the gas pedal, and then if you can, either look at the engine from inside the car or have someone outside the car look at the engine, and then you rev it to like 2,000 RPMs. You do this a couple times. Keep an eye on how much the engine is moving back and forth. They should be, at the max, half an inch, maybe to 3/4 of an inch movement. That's max, and you do the same thing in drive. Put it in drive, emergency brakes on, foot on the brake pedal. You get it to 2,000 to 25 RPMs, and then look for movement. On this car, we have hardly any. It's well within the reasonable movement, so we can verify our engine mounts are okay. Okay, back to our Monte Carlo. It's time to do the same. First, we're gonna check the check engine light, airbag lights, and ABS light if so equipped. There we go. There's our check engine light, ABS light, and there's our airbag light. It's flashing and it's gonna go off while we turn on the car. Do it again. There we go. Okay. So we are losing our airbag light, hopefully. There we go. There's the light, but the check engine light obviously stays on. There's I don't know if you can be able to tell, but that says change engine oil soon. That doesn't necessarily mean you have bad engine oil. It just means that you reset this light every time you get your engine oil replaced. So maybe they didn't reset it last time and it's coming off now. There's a procedure including these knobs and whatnot, which I'll have to look up. Maybe make a video on this. But anyway, so yeah, we got our ABS light and our airbag lights. They came on, then went off. That means both those systems are okay. We obviously have a check engine code, that's why we got a check engine light. But yeah. But now next we do the same thing for our that we did with the Civic. We test our motor mounts. We do that by putting the emergency brake lights on, putting our emergency brakes on, then putting our foot on the brake, putting this in reverse first, and then we're just gonna rev it to 2,000 RPMs, and then either look at the engine from inside the car or have someone outside the car look at it. And of course we'll do the same thing in drive.
Okay, as you saw, we had some movement from this engine. Was moving around a little too much, and probably get some motor mounts loose. Some motor mounts that are going bad or are probably bad. You know, actually, you can always try to see if you can move the engine by hand, and these two front mounts are loose right here. And I'm probably moving the camera as well, but this engine, these mounts need some work at the very least. You could potentially have other mounts that are going bad, so probably if it's just these two front mounts, we're talking 150, maybe 200 if you get it at a shop. If you do it yourself, probably a lot less, but that's something to consider. Okay, so now with the engine idling, you obviously want to, you know, make sure that it idles fine. Nothing, it's not running rough or anything. It's not vibrating. It's not moving around that much. But next, what you want to do is open up your oil cap and check it for blow-by. You know, some blow-by and smoke. Blow-by is basically what the compression gases that pass through your piston rings. As an engine wears out, you get more blow-by. So you got hardly any blow-by actually here. I don't know if it's because of the shape of this this tube or what, but we don't have any blow-by, hardly any. But if this was like a going poof, 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 like a choo-choo train, and you were getting like a puff of smoke and it was going, you know, like that, that would probably mean you have too much blow-by, and that engine is probably worn, probably maybe due to poor maintenance, or you know, maybe something just got overheated or previously overheated or damaged in some way, and it's not a good engine to, it's just not a good sign for your engine. You should also check the rear, or have someone check the rear for any smoke from after a cold start. You know, if you get like a puff of black or blue smoke right after your first start and then it goes away, that could potentially mean leaking valve stem seals, and you know, that could potentially get worse. But you know, usually if you have, that's the case, when we inspected the tailpipe, you would see a lot of oily black stuff, black soot and carbon buildup on your tailpipe. But always helps to double check everything. Okay, so yeah, with the engine running, you want to just listen to it. You obviously don't want to hear any loud knocking or ticking sounds. Those are really bad signs. You know, knocking issues are internal damage to your rod or main bearings, which is the bottom end of your engine. You basically need to rebuild or replace the engine if you have a loud knocking noise. If you have a ticking noise, that's upper end usually. Could also be maybe pulleys or something, but still, you know, why you don't want to really get talked into buying something with knocking or obvious loud ticking noises. You know, some just fairly minimal. These are just normal sounds of the engine. I'm not sure what this camera is going to be picking up. This camera tends to pick and choose what noises it picks up. You know, this engine is sounding okay right now. It might sound worse on the camera, so you want to keep that in mind. But yeah, any knock or loud knock or ticking noise, any noise that you can hear with the hood closed, and you at you know, like a yard or two, if you hear knocking noise or tick 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 ticking noise, then you want to stay away from that engine. Okay, here's a look at our Civic. We're gonna open our oil cap and see if you got any blow-by. Also, sometimes you can look inside of there with hopefully the engine off. You gotta do it with the engine off. Take a look at the inside of the valves. Make sure, if you see them very clean, that's a good sign it's been maintained properly. And as you can see, we got just a little bit. We got just a little bit of blow-by, which is just about right for a car with 108,000 miles on it. Okay, and just to show you what's normal blow-by, see, you got this paper towel. This is really, really light, you know, and it's just barely, well, it's kind of moving it up and down. But if this was, you know, if this was really strong blow-by, it would be going like that more, but that's about normal blow-by. Okay, for the rest of this video and for the test drive and whatnot, I'm gonna be just doing this on the Civic. Obviously you can apply this to any car and the Monte Carlo.
kind of losing daylight here, and I want to get this video done before sun goes down. But yeah, so you're in the car and getting ready for your test drive. Again, obviously a good idea to rev the engine a couple times. You don't have to rev it really high. In fact, don't. The owner is not gonna really appreciate it probably. Just rev it to maybe somewhere between 3 to 4,000 RPMs. Listen for any loud knocking or ticking-ish noises. Those are really bad signs. If you hear those, you wanna stay away from the cars with those noises. And yeah, but before we actually go on the actual test drive, as in drive it around, we're gonna quickly just test our CV joints. You do that by first turning your wheel all the way to the left, and just holding it there, and then you're gonna go forward, and then same thing, just come back in the same direction with the wheel all the way to the left. Usually if you got any clicking noises from your CV joints while the wheel is turned in one direction all the way, you have a bad CV joint and it needs replacing. Most of the time it's more pronounced when you're going in reverse. You hear the clicking more, so it's important you definitely do it in reverse and forward, and you want to do this for both sides. Okay, so while going on your test drive, it's a very good idea to test the suspension components. You can do that by you can go like start driving like 10-15 miles per hour, then find little dips and bumps in the road, and first try to get one side in the bumps, and then try to get the other side in, see if you hear any clunking or any noise. So we're just gonna try this little bump here. Alright, no noise on the left side. You got both wheels going over that, and maybe find a bump, try it again. Also same thing for the right side. Okay, so next actually what we're gonna do is actually test it's always a good idea to double check and triple check the reverse on the car. Sometimes the reverse gear can tell a lot about the health of the transmission and the forward gears. So you want to put it in reverse, go back, maybe pick up some speed. See that whining noise you hear? That's normal while in reverse. You do not want to hear that whining noise while going forward. That is definitely not a good sign. It's a sign of I think it's your transmission fluid pump that's going bad, and replace that. You ought to take apart your transmission. Actually, that's once that fluid, that pump goes bad, it actually means that other parts of your transmission are going bad. So that is not a good sign. Okay, so it's the next day, and my camera's battery died yesterday, so that's why it's the next day, and we're gonna wrap this test drive up. And you guys probably not gonna be able to tell much, but basically we're just gonna find an open road, as you can see here. Just gonna drive down the street, get the car up to speed to 50-60 miles per hour, make sure all the gears engage properly, and yeah, so we get good smooth upshifts. Again, don't floor it, but give it a good gas. Okay, here we go. There's one, two, and the last one, and just in time since this guy just got in front of us. But anyway, there you saw it shifted pretty smoothly. There was no slipping, no kicking into gears, and none of that. Also downshift is pretty good. Another thing you want to keep in mind is let's say just as right now, since we were doing like about 60-70 miles per hour, and then we had to step on the brakes pretty quickly and firmly. You want to pay attention to the wheel. And as you're stepping on the brakes, if the wheel starts jimmying back and forth, that's an indication that your front rotors are worn, and that you need to replace or resurface your front rotors, and probably replace your brake pads. So that's an expense you wanna take into consideration. But also, if you go on the freeway, as we're about to go right now, and at cruising speed, like on the freeway, like around 60, anywhere from 55 to let's say 75 miles per hour, if you get the same, shimming back and forth of the steering wheel, then that's an indication that you either have your tires are out of balance, or you have bad tires, or you might have bent rims or wheels. So that's rare. In my experience, it's usually either balance or bad tires. So we're gonna get up to speed here, hopefully. All right, picking up even more speed. We got 70, still very firm and nice and steady. I'm braking, and steering wheel, it can move, Jimmy, a tiny amount. I mean, that's okay, but if you're braking, going from like 60 to 70, you're pressing on the brake pedal and you get the vibration here, then yeah, you should probably need some brake service, definitely for your front brakes. Okay, so we just got back from our test drive, and it's a really good idea to once again open the hood, and while the engine is running, just check it for any just to see how it's running, see if there's any weird noises now that it has reached operating temperature coming from the engine. I have a feeling this camera is going to be picking up some just the ticking noises. There's a tiny bit of ticking noise coming from this engine, which is somewhat normal, but overall this engine sounds really good. But yeah, you might hear just tick 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 on this camera. But anyway, yeah, it always helps to have a friend with you when you go to test drive it. Maybe sometimes while inspecting cars, it's an extra set of pair of eyes definitely helps. Or you could just have him also sit in the car and do all those tests about just revving the engine or testing the motor mounts and whatnot too. That always helps. Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this mechanical inspection series up. I obviously didn't go over. I think I probably missed stuff. I kind of did this in a hurry. I should have probably made a checklist and gone through it. But obviously on the interior, make sure all your power windows work. Make sure they go up and down. Make sure your heater works. Make sure your AC works. If either of those things don't work, they could potentially cost a lot of money to fix. If you have like a clogged heater core, like on that Monte Carlo we looked at earlier, like how it was so dirty, on the coolant was so dirty, it had corrosion and stuff. If that stuff gets into your heater core and clogs it up, and you gotta replace your heater core, it's gonna cost a bunch of money because it's very labor intensive. It's usually inside the dash somewhere, and it could run you up to who knows how much, definitely more than a couple $100. Also your AC system, if you have a bad AC compressor or AC condenser, you got leaks here and there, and those need to be repaired. That's going to cost you a good couple $100 at the very least. You get plus the cost of the part and the refrigerant, all that good stuff. So make sure all those two things work. Make sure your power seats work, especially the driver power seats if it's so equipped. If the power seats don't work, you're going to be driving that thing sitting very uncomfortably, so it's very important to make sure that thing works. Also on the test drive for the transmission, while we were checking if all the gears shift smoothly, we only tested it while we were giving it good gas. We were kind of pushing it, but also make sure they shift smoothly just as you're steadily increasing your speed, because sometimes transmissions, they might shift into gear, kick into gear only when you're giving it, when you're giving it good gas, and other times, if you're just increasing your speed slowly, they might feel fine, and also the other way around. So you want to make sure you test it under both conditions. Also, if you're buying a used car for a couple $1,000, there's probably going to be minor things wrong with it. It's going to have minor leaks here and there. The things I would stay away from is like if the car has a major oil leak or a major coolant leak. If the car has been ran low on oil a little bit, could have potentially damaged some internal engine parts, which they might not be that pronounced yet. They might not make noises like ticking or knocking noises, but they might in the future. Also, if it's got a major coolant leak, it might have overheated, and that might have jeopardized the integrity of your cylinder head or even your head gasket or your block. So those are things that you should tend to stay away from. But you know, it's got small oil leak around the valve cover gasket. You know, given that it's not that expensive to replace your particular valve cover gasket, it's, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. The idea of this video is for you to find out what it needs, and therefore you can then decide what kind of so you can make an educated decision as far as if you want to purchase a certain car or not. Okay, so with that said, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Next video is going to be on how to spot body or unibody damage, previous frame unibody or body damage that's been maybe repaired, resprayed, and it's gonna be my favorite video of this series because it's kind of playing like a game of clues. You know, you gotta look for little signs and clues that might give you an indication whether there was some kind of damage. While if you don't know what to look for, it might look just fine to you, but it's something that you probably want to know if your car has a frame damage or not, or even if it was resprayed at some, like half of it was resprayed, you want to know why probably. So yeah, if you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you want to see the next video, please subscribe if you haven't done so, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.